Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Speak Plainly podcast, where we speak plainly about things that matter. I am your host, Owl Medicine, and today's topic is bad days. And you know why? Because I'm having a bad day. I have seen this meme going around a lot later. Meme, reel, whatever. The audio. Everything's so meta now online. It's crazy. But you've seen it. It's an audio clip of this, I think, Indian guy who's like, "Are you having a bad day? Go back to bed. Not every day can be a good day." And it's hilarious. It's also very true. And it also has its limitations. And that's what I want to talk about. Because, no, not every day can be a bad day. But for those of us with history of chronic stress and trauma, that's a really slippery slope. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the bad days that we need to push through. I think we all have to admit that there are bad days that just don't get better. And that sometimes when we have really pushed ourselves beyond our limits, that we do need to just do nothing. Just go back to sleep, start the day all over again, get yourself a decaf latte or whatever it is that you do to give yourself like the permission to just be. All right? Those days are very useful, very legitimate, and they're great. But that's not today's topic, because today is not one of those days. Today's I have a podcast I need to put out. And today's podcast was going to be on kintsugi, but I'm going to save that for another day, because this seems very, very real and tangible for not just myself, but a couple of my friends. So let me walk you through this morning. Yesterday, my ex and friend had to take back a dog that he was fostering to see if maybe it would work. He helped me so much through my time with Key, and we've been just super close for years now. And he really missed Key, and she was a wonderful dog, so he thought, hey, maybe I can have a poochie too. And so we went, we saw some poochies, tried it. He would wind up just being just so sweet, just incredibly sweet, incredibly beautiful and kind and cuddly and awesome. But he was a long dog. And I just called him Long Dog. I was like, look at you, Long Dog. Because he was a long dog. And Michael lives in a small apartment house thing. So we had to take him back. And when we did, it was sad. And of course, no matter how good he was never going to be Key. And for me, I was constantly kind of referencing back to that. It would have been unfair because I was constantly comparing him to Key, because Key was just the greatest thing in the world as far as I'm concerned. So still the stimulation of like having another dog around made me think about her a lot. And I thought about her a lot yesterday, and I got sad last night. And then this morning I woke up kind of the same way. I woke up thinking about her and missing her, and not just missing her, but here's where the subject matter of today's topic comes in. I wasn't just missing her. That would have been fine. That's not trauma. That's just life. The trauma showed up in my mental processes about the whole thing. I have very high expectations for myself. And no matter how often I reach those expectations, the second I reach them, I move those things higher, because I always want to grow and I always want to be better and blah, blah, blah. But that also creates a slippery slope for my own stuff sometimes. So I'm always trying to seek to do better. And some of that's great. Some of that is based out of trauma. And today, the trauma showed up because I couldn't stop blaming myself. And I still haven't found a way to find a compassionate narrative for myself, for putting Key down when I did. Now, the day I put her down was Saturday, just 2 days before 4th of July, and we all know that people don't wait for 4th of July to shoot off fireworks, and she was very sick. And her tumor had come back and had gotten huge and was filling her mouth, and she was very wobbly and weak, and she did not like the fireworks at all. She hated them. And I didn't want her to be stressed out and like be bleeding out and be miserable, and then there's nothing I can do but let her die in pain. And I didn't want to do that. But I still had other things on my mind that I thought were important, I wanted to be present for. At any rate, this is what happens. You're getting it in real time. That was my trauma mind going down all of the things. So essentially, here's the process of the bad days, is going, that's what my mind does when it is dysregulated, or when I'm sad, or when I'm in shame, or feel like I've done something wrong, and that is a result of my trauma. So I have to cut that off. But I spent about an hour and a half this morning crying really hard because I really miss her, and mostly because I failed her. I miss her, and I don't know exactly the why, but I know it's I miss her, and I know it's I failed her. I didn't give her cancer, right? In fact, I did everything I could. I spent every waking moment for months on end either giving her herbs or studying cancer and studying herbology and its effects, and really just drilling the life-saving information into myself so I could extend her life as much as I could. But I didn't give her cancer. I did the best I could, but that doesn't mean I can't shake this feeling. That doesn't mean I can't shake the feeling of being an utter failure, of letting my friends die alone. And that's what it felt like. That's what it feels like today, right now, talking about this. I feel like I failed her because I feel like I let her die alone. I was right there. Like, she was in my lap. But I feel like I let her die alone because I wasn't mentally where I wanted to be. I wasn't able to compartmentalize the way I needed to compartmentalize to make the decisions that I made and to play the role I was playing. But my goal now is, I wish that I could have done all the compartmentalization, done all of that well, and then been able to rally, to pull all those pieces together, to be whole and wholly present with her on the day that she passed, and I didn't do that. And that's a guilt that I have. And sure, some of it's probably legitimate and some of it's my fault or whatever, but that's probably a very, 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 very small percentage. Most of it is cancer and age and life, and all things that are created must break and die. So I had a really rough morning this morning, and I knew I had this podcast to do, so I recognized that what's happening in my head, the narrative around basically abandoning her, which is not at all what happened, but that's exactly how I feel. Like, it's exactly how I feel. And there's no one, myself or anyone else on the planet, who could tell me anything that could change the fact that that's the way that I feel. So here's the crux. I feel like I failed her. I don't know that I did, and I don't know that I didn't. And I can never know either of those two things. So what now? What next? the most important step a man can take is always the next one. So I took the next step. I have a podcast that's due today, and I'm going to do it. So I drove back over to I made myself a coffee, drove back over to my house, and I called a friend who seemed to be having a hard morning. So I called them, and they had a hard morning too. In a very similar space as mine, not about key, but quite similar. And just stuck in the funk, stuck in the yuck, stuck in the I can't figure it out, I can't solve this. And it was stealing their joy. And they asked me, after they talked about their day, they asked me, like, how are you doing? We were FaceTiming. They're like, you look pretty good. Like, you look like you're all dressed. You're taking on your Sunday. You're doing it. You're taking on your Sunday strong. And because I'm recording this on Sunday, it'll come out Monday morning. I'm sure that you could have figured out that I didn't record this at midnight. But they said, you look good. And I just laughed. I was like, no, I don't feel good. I feel like absolute ass. I've spent the last almost 2 hours, definitely like hour and a half crying. And I just pulled myself together to go home and do what I need to do despite how I feel about it. And it was good. It was a good conversation. We talked about that, about how this is what trauma does. Trauma shows up in so many ways in our lives, and they're so sneaky. Oh, it's sneaky. And it's annoying because it's smart too. Like the trauma, the way that it shows up in my head is highly rational, at least for a few steps. You know, it at least gets covered up by rationality. And so it always seems legit. Like I can find ways to rationally expand on my irrational trauma. But that's what's happening, is we have this irrational feeling like mine of feeling guilty like I killed my dog when I didn't fucking give her cancer. But I still have that feeling, so I have this irrational feeling, and then what do? I slap rationality on top of it and find ways to prove myself right. That's what I did. I found ways to prove myself right. That's what I've been doing. Finding ways to prove myself right. Because once that trauma gets stimulated in us, it has to run its course. It has to do its thing. And that's why like mindfulness and just knowing oneself. Mindfulness is not the end all be all. It is not going to save you from yourself. It's just a way for you to get to know yourself. So when you start to act like a dumbass, you can call yourself on it. That's what it's for. I don't care about mindfulness eliminating suffering from the world and all of that. No, fuck that. I plan on suffering because I plan on having the same amount of joy. Like, I don't want to suffer any worse than I have to, but I'm not trying to avoid attachments in this life because that's what it's for. If I didn't exist and then showed up in a physical existence spontaneously of no will of my own, I'm gonna go ahead and believe that I created some kind of contract with the universe, or that the universe threw me into a situation in which I'm meant to have a physical experience. And that's what this is about then. A physical experience. So I'm going to get attached to the people I get attached to. I'm going to get attached to my dog. I'm going to get attached to these things because that's what fucking life is for. So for me, meditation is not about finding ways to detach from everything. It's about learning yourself. It's about finding a way to know thyself, because only once you know thyself can you stop fooling yourself. This is what trauma's about. Healing from trauma is about not fooling yourself anymore, which is really, really hard, because the way that we fool ourselves, we pick up from our parents, from our siblings, from our aunties and uncles, from our teachers and preachers and everybody else. We come up with all kinds of fantastic ways to fool ourselves, and then we call it rational. So my friend and I, we talked more, and we got to a place where they were upset. Still, like, not at me, but just upset because it's a bad day. And I said the same thing. The bottom line of it was sometimes you have to suck it the fuck up and move on. And that's not the same as ignoring it. There's two things that could happen here. You can suck it the fuck up, you can shove it into a corner, compartmentalize that shit, and move on. And you can just leave it there behind you. And the more you ignore it, the more it will grow. It will grow and grow and grow inside you, inside your mind, and inside your flesh until 10 years from now you have some kind of super screwed up psychological breakdown or some manifestation of some disease that is a direct response to you ignoring something major because you couldn't handle it psychologically. So we compartmentalize it, toss it in the back, let it collect cobwebs until those cobwebs become cancer, and then maybe we'll deal with it, but by then we're so busy focused on not dying, who knows whether we do or not. So we can do that. You can shove it in the back, compartmentalize it, leave it there, and keep moving. That's one way. That's a traumatized way. The way that I do it, the only way I think we can actually heal from trauma is to do pretty much exactly that, but instead of just wrapping it up in the corner, wrap it up in a napkin, tie a string to it, drag it over your shoulder, and carry that shit with you through the rest of your day. I'm not going to pretend like I'm having a great day. I'm not having a great day. But you know what's going to be great? When I finish recording and editing this and get it uploaded, slap it up on Buzzsprout, and then it gets distributed tomorrow, and I remember tomorrow how awful of a morning I had, and then I had a conversation with a friend that then also further dysregulated me, and then I called another friend and we had yet another conversation about this exact same process. How do you deal with the bad days? As a traumatized person, how do you deal with the bad days? Because we can't afford to just go to sleep. We can't afford to do that because we have more bad days than most people do. We just do. We have more bad days. That's what being traumatized is. So what are we going to do with it? And this is the answer. So when I called my other friend, I spoke with her, and she had just given up. She had just given up on the day. Was like, I'm done. I'm just gonna binge eat and doom scroll. And I called just to like vent about this because she's got at least as much trauma as me. So she understands that, like, she lives it. She lives this. Only people with like seriously screwed up backgrounds can understand this. There are days that it just feels so overwhelming. It feels like you can't get yourself out of bed. And occasionally we can give in to that. Occasionally. But most of the time, it's not going to help. Most of the time, that's just going to make things worse for us, for chronic stress adapted people. Because we have to fight it so often. So I called my friend, the second one, and she had basically just given up on the day. Was like chalking it up to a loss. It was her partner's birthday too. And like, he is amazing. He understands her and knows. He doesn't take the stuff personally. He knows that there's way more going on behind the scenes, and it has nothing to do with him or how much she loves him or anything like that. And he was wonderfully supportive in whatever way he could, but it didn't change the reality for my friend. She just was like, I'm done. I'm giving up. I'm just going to let the day be what it is. And when I called and was like, I'm really frustrated, because I mentioned a couple of podcasts ago that I've stressed a couple of my friendships recently with my intensity, which I am now switching that phrase to its conviction. I also have intensity that is separate from my conviction, but most of the time when I'm talking about my own intensity, I'm talking about my conviction to my own growth and the conviction to overcoming my own trauma. And today was one of those days. When I got off the phone with my first friend, I still feel a little bit worried that she might have taken it wrong. And I know her. and I trust her, and I know that she loves me and I love her, and that there's trust there and the relationship is strong and all of that. But it doesn't get rid of the fact that because of the way that we got off the phone, I feel weird. But guess what? Doesn't matter that I feel weird. I have things I decided are important. They're important enough for me to do them, whether I feel good or not. And that's the key to bad days with trauma. If you're a chronic stress adapted person and you're like one of my two friends today who also had a bad day today, like you'll listen to this on Monday. If you had a bad day yesterday, know that you're not alone. I don't know what it was this morning, but all the way around. I had another friend, we haven't had a chance to talk today, but she texted too, had a bad morning. They've been out of power for a couple of days. Sometimes you have bad days, and it's a matter of, well, what are you going to do about it? And I think this is the answer. And I know it's really uncomfortable, and you're probably not going to like it. And if you're having an extra bad day, you might not finish listening to this podcast. But once again, I don't give a shit. My job isn't to make anybody like me. My job isn't to give anybody any advice, honestly. My job is to do me as well as I possibly can and put that on display. If it helps, it helps. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Not my job. That's above my pay grade. Whether it helps somebody else or not is above my pay grade. My job is to do me as well as I possibly can. And that means being convicted about my own growth and being convicted about sticking to what I say works and what I say matters. Because it's just one big experiment. None of us have it figured out. And neither does anybody else. Nobody that you're going to go to have them explain things to you has it all figured out. They're just going to give you their opinion from what they know. Based on what they know. That's all you can do. They may know more than you, and that's why you trust their opinion. But at some point, you have to learn to trust yourself. And this is the part that pisses off traumatized people, is you don't trust yourself. And I can feel the responses. Yes, I do. I have great instincts. No, the fuck you don't. No, the fuck you don't. You have great instincts about some things, and you have terrible instincts about others. That's what it means to be traumatized. That's what it means to be chronic stress adapted. We're all going to have bad days, and it's just a matter of what we do with them. Like I said up front, some bad days, yes, go back, make yourself a cup of tea, go back to sleep, start it over, stay in bed and watch TV all day if you can do that. But for a lot of folks, doing that will make things worse. And for a lot of other folks, they just can't. You got kids, probably just can't. You know, if you have people depending on you, you probably can't. You probably can't just lay in bed all Sunday and be depressed and that not have negative effects on the people around you. So how do we deal with the bad days? This is it. You admit that they're bad. You figure out why they're bad. And the bad being, it's uncomfortable. This is a unpleasant experience. That's all that bad means, is that my experience of this event is physically unpleasant. You have to figure out what makes it unpleasant. In my case, it was unpleasant because I was blaming myself for something that was out of my control. Yes, maybe I could have done better, but that wouldn't shift blame at all, which is an utterly useless concept anyway, outside of to discharge pain. But I'm in physical discomfort. That's what a bad experience is I'm not liking this. That provides me with some kind of pain, and then we look for a way to discharge that pain with blame. And those of us that are chronic stress adapted, we're going to discharge that blame right back dead center at ourselves. Because we don't want to blame anybody else. At least if we're at fault, we can do something about it. Maybe you do blame somebody else for something else, and so you can just chalk it up to it's their fault. But for me, most of the time, it's my fault. Not entirely, and I always know that. But there's always something I could have done better. And this is that double-edged sword. This is one of my strengthnesses. It is an incredible strength of mine that I am so convicted in my dedication to my own growth that when I spend an hour and a half crying this morning, that I still just go, okay, that's fine. That's what my day is. Cool. I'm still going to do what I need to do. And still reach out to other friends who seem to be having a hard time. And when I ran out of energy, I just let the conversation go and was like, I love you. I gotta go. I have things I have to do just because I have to do them. And I'm having a bad day. I don't have much extra energy to give. And I put up a good boundary there and was like, I have to go. I love you. And that was really hard, especially with how awful I felt today and still feel. It's a hard day. But you don't get to throw in the towel every time that you have a hard day. What kind of opinion would you have of yourself if you did that? I'm happy that I'm doing this right now, knowing that it doesn't feel good. I'm still very happy that I'm doing it because I know that 6:00 p.m. me and that 7 a.m. tomorrow me are both going to be really proud of myself that I did this. And they're going to be really proud of myself that I didn't do what I normally do, which is spend an entire day writing out my podcast and then building an outline and looking at it and reviewing it all and then trying to read it and just kind of really flying by the seat of my pants on this one because it's prevalent, it's real, and it's happening in real time to myself and to my friends, to people I know that listen to this podcast. So I have a rule. If I give the same bit of advice 3 times, I have to automatically look at myself in a mirror and see where that advice might land for my own life. And I'm finding the opposite is true as well. If something has been true for me, and then it has been true especially for a couple of other close friends, I need to push that out there for everybody because there's something in it that will be relatable to the other people. Maybe it's the season, maybe it's the stars, maybe it's Maybelline. I don't know, I don't care. It's not my job. That too is above my pay grade. My job is to do the best I can and then put that on display. The good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, whatever. So that's what I'm doing today. I am interested in what other people do on your bad days. Because to me, it seems like the options are the most common ones anyway. I mean, we could even use just the physical body as our blueprint. We have, whenever there is a stimulus, we are either stimulated to go towards it, to freeze, or to move away from it. And those are our options. And with this, when our trauma shows up, we can freeze. We'll try to understand it, try to conceptualize it, and we'll freeze because we will use rationality to try to understand something that is fundamentally irrational. So we just wind up in circles. Or we can suck it the fuck up and move on by slapping it in a corner and pretending it's not real and charging ahead like a bull in a china shop, as my mother would say. Or we can do a blend, which is what works for me. Like, you can freeze, you can retreat, or you can advance. And to me, the way that we advance is when you have that bad day, when you're blaming yourself for something that isn't your fault, or at least isn't exclusively your fault, you have to find a way to dig down You have to know yourself. You have to know what your habits are. You have to know what your psychological habits are. And I know I'm good at blaming myself, and I know why I'm good at blaming myself, and I know that there's good things in that, and there's bad things in that. And it was really hard, and I still can't get rid of the blame. I still can't get rid of that feeling. Someday, I'm sure, I hope anyway, that I will find a compassionate narrative for myself in this situation. But today is not that day. So the reason I was having a hard morning is because I'm mad at myself. I'm mad at myself for not performing perfectly in an impossible situation. What I want to have been able to do was to be perfect, essentially, and be able to rally myself and be as present with Key emotionally as I would be if I weren't trying to also be her care provider, which is fundamentally impossible. And I know that that's a habit that I get into. So when I start to notice that the habit is happening, rather than trying to dive into the why, because I already know the why, I've already established that within myself, and I write that down. This is why taking good notes is important. This is why journaling is important, is because if you have an idea and you don't get it outside of yourself and write it down somewhere, poof, it's gone. I don't give a shit that you had the idea. It's utterly useless because it didn't stick around. You have to make these things stick. You have to actually know yourself instead of get an idea about yourself and then forget it. So when you do ask those why questions and you get to the heart of it, write that shit down and remember it. Go back to it. Because when you get dysregulated and you're having a bad day, like I was having a bad day, you can look at it and go, ugh, I know I'm doing it again. And the day's not going to get better. It might get, I stopped crying. That's better, right? So it does get a little bit better, I suppose. It gets a little bit better. But it's not going to fix your day. Not crying doesn't mean I'm having the best day. That's not my qualifications for having the greatest day ever. It's like, well, I didn't cry. In fact, there's some irony in that, because most of my best days, I consider that they are my best days because I cried, but in a positive, pleasant way. Ultimately, we need to be able to understand what our patterns are, and then when we see those patterns, regardless of where they come from, chalk it up to a pattern. Like, oh, this pattern is a habituation of my brain. Brains do things habitually because they did them a lot, and our brains are interested in efficiency. So whatever your brain does the most, whatever your body does the most, it will get better at doing that. It will contort everything about its stasis mode. Physiologically, you could be talking like musculoskeletally, that would be posture, right? It will adjust your everyday posture to having rolled forward shoulders and a bend in your neck, because everything you do is in that position in front of laptops and phones. Our brains do the same thing. And mine defaults into, what did I do wrong? What can I do better? And that's twisted, because that's exactly how I got myself to grow out of my trauma. And now I'm in a situation where that's also what is keeping me from leaving that trauma behind. That's why there is no such thing as good advice. There's only good advice for a certain person in a certain scenario, because no matter where we're at, there are phases that we must move through, and each of those phases are meant to they go a certain way, and if the advice is congruous with the phase of life that you're in, then it's great. If it's not, then it's not great advice. No matter how good the advice actually is. Wrong place, wrong time screws everything up. It's all about context. And our brains, us chronic stress adapted people, the context in our brains are all twisted. Trauma pulls you out of the current time and place that you're in and puts you in another one. And it's your job to reality check that. Look around the room and go, am I under threat? If you feel like you're under threat, look around the room and go, am I under threat? And if there's nobody jumping out of the closet or under the bed to stab you, then the answer is no. I don't give a shit how you feel about that. That's the reality. That's what you have to do, is reality check. That's what I had to do. I had to reality check. Did I give my dog cancer? Did I kill my dog? Did I shoot her in the fucking head? No, I didn't. So there may be some guilt in there. Yes, I could have done things better and blah, blah, blah. And I have guilt over that, and all that's perfectly fine. But the habituation, because of the trauma in my brain, is to blame myself. So I was diving headfirst into all of the ways that I could rationalize it being my fault, because my fault is my default. I hope you heard that. It's my fault is my default. The only thing that we can do for ourselves is clean up our side of the road. Gotta stay in your lane, as the Air Force put it. It's my fault is my default. So if there's something wrong, I automatically default to somehow it's my fault. And that's good in certain situations, right? That's a strengthness. It is a strength to go, whatever's going wrong, what part did I play in that? But that's the actual positive aspect of it, right? That's the real of it, is what part did I play in that? It's my fault gets me to that question, but it's my fault is the default that my brain has that also totally screws me, because it's my fault then. So then I'm to blame. So then I have the guilt. I have all of that I have to carry. So I have to reality check. I have to go, is this actually my fault? And no, it's not. And it doesn't matter that it feels different. It doesn't matter that it feels like it is my fault. None of that matters. This is reality checking. And that's what you do on bad days. On bad days, if you're a chronic stress adapted person like me, you have to reality check. You have to go, is what I'm feeling reflected in my environment? Is there something right here, right now, that is making me feel this way, that is stimulating me to feel this way? Or has something in me been triggered and I'm responding to a scenario that's not happening in real time? I'm responding to a scenario that happened in the past. That's what trauma is. So one of the ways that you fix that when you have a bad day is you reality check yourself and go, is this real? And for me, the painful reality is that no, I didn't kill Key, and yes, I should have done better. But also, I couldn't have. I don't think when I think back to that time, I couldn't have done better. I simply couldn't. I didn't have the energy. I didn't have the time. I did the best I could with what I had at the time. But that doesn't shake the feeling I have. It doesn't shake the guilt. It doesn't remove the pain. But it is a buoy. And that's what reality checking is. When you reality check and you look around the room, you look around your life, and you go, is what I'm feeling reflected in my environment? When you look around and you check your environment, that becomes your buoy. The buoy that allows you to stay up, out of the mire of the trauma and the self-blame and the bullshit. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel resolved either. And I think that's the problem. I think the problem is that we don't feel resolved when we do this. Like, the issue doesn't feel resolved. We have resolve. I have resolve when it comes to this. I have the resolve that I will do what the fuck I need to do, whether I feel like doing it or not, because that makes me proud of myself. In the same way that when I'm really, really twisted and fucked off, and I say no, and I don't overextend myself anymore, and I say, I know I was going to do this and I promised to do that, but I have to say no for myself, that too gives me pride. That too makes me feel good about myself. And the only way to tell which position you're in is to start moving down one of those paths. And for most chronic stress adapted people, I would say the path that you should move down is the path of compartmentalizing why you feel the way that you feel, understanding that it's your trauma, and that's all the deeper that why needs to go. The more of that why that you have, I have found it makes it easier to hold on to, but the why doesn't actually help outside of knowing that it's trauma. And you sling that over your shoulder, and you recognize, this is my burden. It's not fair. It's bullshit. I shouldn't have to do this. I shouldn't feel this way. I shouldn't be blaming myself, but I am. And that's not actually my fault. That's just the way that I'm built now. Because blaming myself worked. So here's to us. Here's to the chronic stress adapted. The people who are traumatized, the people who get flashbacks, the people who get pulled out of the now into some other time and space that was much less pleasant. Here's to us, and here's to our bad days. Because no, not every bad day can become a good day, but most of them can. Thank you very much for listening to today's podcast. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. It was a very real one for me. So I hope that you have some strength to move through your bad day. I hope the next time that you have a really bad day, that you go, okay, that's fine. Today is less than ideal. And you suck it the fuck up. And you move on. You do what you need to do, not lying to yourself, not pretending it's a good day, not pretending it's a horrible day, not dropping into and getting lost in your trauma, but instead recognizing that it is what it is, and recognizing that having trauma means starting life out behind the start line. And this is what it looks like. When we get dysregulated, this is what it feels like. This is being behind the start line, is having to carry that crap with us and do what we need to do anyway. It consumes more energy for us than it does for our less traumatized, like other people. But guess what? Oh well. They didn't have your life and you didn't have theirs. So I hope I actually don't know what I hope. I really don't. I don't know what I hope from this podcast. I don't know what I hope that you get out of it. Honestly, I love wrapping these things up with some kind of like, up, here's your little lesson. And I don't have that in me today. Here's what a bad day looks like. Here's what a bad day can look like if you choose to embrace the suck and keep moving anyway. And while you carry on, remember, stay curious and stay uncomfortable.